Now, look, a big decision for the Prime Minister will be the future of the energy rebate. He told the ABC a decision about its continuation would be made before the end of the year. Have a listen.
Well, what we've said, David, is that this wouldn't be in place forever. This was an interim measure. We'll give consideration to that in the lead up to MyEFO and make an announcement before the end of the year once we make that decision.
Well, I don't see how the government can continue paying the energy rebate. It's clearly unsustainable. On the other hand, I don't see how they can scrap it, since that would pile pressure on households already burdened by cost of living pressures.
Well, yeah, what it actually comes down to, James, is cheap, reliable energy, which we don't have because there is no plan B to keep the lights on in this country. We're phasing out coal-fired power plants and we're just on this renewables-only magic carpet ride in the process. Look, these subsidies, these rebates, they were always going to be temporary Band-Aid solutions, because essentially it means that you and I, we're all paying for each other's energy bills.
On borrowed money, might I add.
On borrowed money. So it was always going to be a very deceitful way to make it seem like your power bills were coming down, yet we still haven't seen that $275 in energy bill relief that we were promised. Of course, that disappeared into the never.
Yeah.
But 2 points on this. Firstly, we've always known that when these rebates were going to peter out, your energy bills were going to go up in the other direction again. And secondly, when they do peter out, it's going to put upwards pressure on inflation, because in the last, well, 6 to 8 months, of course, inflation figures have been temporarily altered by these energy rebates. And this is both also federally and state, because, of course, these came from the state governments as well. And so subsidies have always been a very good way to trick the Reserve Bank into thinking that Anthony Albanese has a hold on the economy, that he knows what he's doing. But as I said, the key denominator in all this is cheap and reliable energy, and we just don't have that.
Yeah, well, I mean, if they get rid of these rebates, and it's an admission, sorry, if they keep the rebates, and it's an admission that prices are continuing to go up, this promise of cheap renewable energy has not been fulfilled. The other problem, if they keep it, is it's an incredible expense at a time when they've got to get debt under control. The problem, though, is if they scrap it, then, you know, Australians will realise just how expensive energy is, because at the moment it's been camouflaged. And, as you rightly pointed out, it'll put upward pressure on inflation, which is the last thing any of us want right now. So we were promised the rebate would be temporary, but the problem is higher energy prices seem to be permanent. And so the government are stuck between two really bad choices, all, I should add, of their own making. So here's the real problem. While Australians, and this is the part that really annoys me, right? While Australians are struggling with cost of living pressures and watching every penny very carefully, there seems no such constraint on government ministers. The Prime Minister has defended Communications Minister Anika Wells spending $100,000 on New York flights. He's defended it with a, you know, shrug of the shoulders.
It turns out nearly $100,000 was spent just on flights for the minister, a staffer and a public servant to attend with her. Does that seem like a wise use of taxpayers' money to you?
Well, this was a really important event, David.
I suppose the question is, was the importance of having Anika Wells there worth that sort of expense to the taxpayer?
Well, Anika Wells was, of course, doing her job as the Communications Minister, who's in charge of this world-leading legislation.
Yeah, and as for revelations that Anika Wells used her family reunion entitlements to host her family at Thredbo for a week of skiing, while Australian taxpayers wonder how they'll pay their power bills, the minister said it was her right to do what she did.
Were you shocked then? When you found out how much it cost, did you go, goodness me, I didn't realise it cost that much?
Yeah. Well, I absolutely understand that any ordinary Australian would look in those black and white figures and have a gut reaction. I completely understand that. I absolutely understand that parliamentarians' travel entitlements should be scrutinised. People can have an opinion about whether it was worth the money.
Let me deal with Anika Wells first. That comment, well, you know, people can scrutinise whether or not it was right, but it was within the rules. The problem with that is she's appealing to the fact of, was it wrong? And, well, it was within the rules, so it wasn't wrong. Fine. But I think we want more from our politicians than, well, it wasn't wrong. The question is, was it wise? And clearly it was not wise. That's why she's reverted to the rule book and said, well, the rules say, because it's indefensible from a wisdom point of view when Australians are doing it that tough. And even if Australians weren't doing it tough, $100 grand. For flights for the minister, a public servant and an advisor, I think it was, to go to New York is just an incredible, exorbitant waste of money. As for the Prime Minister, asked about this, and he refused to answer repeatedly on the ABC, saying she was doing her job, she was doing very important work. Well, no one would dispute that, I suppose. The question remains, though, should they really be spending that much money on flights? And he kept deflecting away from that question, which tells you everything, doesn't it?
It does. And, you know, props to Andrew Clennell this morning on Sky News. He really pushed the minister and he asked her, did you ever once think maybe $100,000 is excessive? Now, she said, well, yes, it is excessive. But if that's truly what you truly thought, why wouldn't you have done something about it? You know, we obviously do agree that politicians do need to take these international flights, but it's the cost that matters. And $100,000 absolutely beggars belief, James. It does not pass this pub test, because what we've now seen is Anika Wells is going on a spending spree with our money. Look, the thing is, the PM defended her today, and that, to me, is the most concerning part of this, that he wasn't willing to come out and say, OK, $100,000 was probably excessive. At least the minister herself acknowledged that $100,000 was excessive. But the Prime Minister just put his hands over his eyes, basically, and said, no, look, there's just nothing to see here. But the issues do lie with this minister. She's clearly got her training wheels on right now. I mean, aside from billing us $100,000, now she's got flights to accommodation in Thredbo. There were 3 Paris flights as well involved in this. She was swanning about at the United Nations in New York while the Optus drama was going on here with the blackout that led to the death of 3 people. And then she did tell us in that same week that she was new. She's a new minister, so we were supposed to just go, well, that's all right, she's new, we'll cut her some slack. She's got her training wheels on. This is not a serious minister within the Albanese Labor government. And it's also overshadowed when you think this social media ban, that this is meant to be her big starring moment this week when the laws do come into effect on Wednesday. And it's overshadowed it, because every press conference, every time she gets up and talks now, this is going to be the main topic of discussion, as it should be.
Why, though, would you expect a minister to take responsibility when the Prime Minister does not?
True.
He was asked by Andrew Clennell this morning whether his office was part of the decision to spend that much money on flights to New York. And first Anthony Albanese said, yes, it went through my office. And when pressed as to, so were you personally aware of this, then the Prime Minister repeated twice, we make decisions as a government. So it went from my office to as a government. So this failure to take responsibility begins at the top. And as I said, you shouldn't expect anything from ministers that you don't get from the Prime Minister. And we certainly don't seem to get responsibility from him.
No, that's it.